Urgent announcement, guys. All in our fourth stimulus check update and daily news update. The White House talks about the $3.5 trillion stimulus package and the scary debt ceiling cliff that we're about to fall off of next month. Expanded unemployment benefits coming in hot in this $3.5 trillion stimulus package. And lastly, President Biden doing some heavy lifting of his own for the sake of the $3.5 trillion stimulus package, all in today's video. We're all about stimulus and money here on the Ron Yates channel. So if you want the latest and most accurate updates on stimulus and the best ways to make money right now, then don't hesitate. The juiciest part first. We may be getting expanded unemployment benefits in the coming $3.5 trillion stimulus package. Now, this wasn't discussed before, so like we said about the stimulus checks, they can throw things in here anytime. Now, this expanded unemployment benefits is thanks to the latest letter from Representatives AOC and Cori Bush. We all know these congresswomen from their fight for mortgage moratorium expansion. Now they're picking up their pens for expanded unemployment. The two progressive lawmakers spearheaded a letter signed by 11 other Democrats to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. The lawmakers said that they wrote the message to express the urgency of including unemployment insurance reforms in the Build Back Better Act to protect the millions of unemployed workers across the country. In particular, they want Congress to set a floor for unemployment insurance duration that states must follow and broadly include part-time workers, ban exclusions based on past wages, and require alternative base periods. Their point being a strong and responsive UI system not only helps our entire economy move more quickly and equitably recover from future recessions, it is also an essential tool to help dislocated workers stay connected to the workforce and to provide for their families as they seek new employment. Definitely couldn't agree more, guys. But what about you? Were you hit hard when these unemployment benefits just stopped coming in this month? Let me know your situation in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. AOC and Bush are also part of the 80+ lawmakers that are pushing for the fourth stimulus check, even recurring stimulus checks. The latest letter to President Biden from the members of the House Ways and Means Committee, they said, families and workers deserve to know that they can put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. They should not be at the mercy of constantly shifting legislative timelines. This is very similar to what the 2.8 million signature petition said about recurring stimulus checks. They said it took 9 months for Congress to send a second stimulus check and just moments to spend it. Moving forward, Congress needs to make recurring stimulus checks automatic if certain triggers are met. Now again, that's 80+ lawmakers, 156 top economists, 2.8 million signatures, and even Vice President Kamala Harris, all supporting recurring stimulus checks for us. Now, we're constantly on the lookout for these stimulus check proposals. We have 4 on our watch list so far. First one, we got Representative Ilhan Omar's Federal Guaranteed Basic Income Program. This is monthly stimulus checks of up to $1,200 per month for adults and $600 per month for kids. Second one we've got is Representative Rashida Tlaib's Automatic Boost to Communities Act. This is the $2,000 fourth stimulus check right out the gate. Then they follow up with $1,000 monthly stimulus checks until 1 year. Now, the third one we're keeping an eye on is from Representatives Pramila Jayapal and Barbara Lee's House Resolution to End Poverty Act. Now, what this one does is it's stimulus checks via the Cash Assistance Program, a minimum wage increase, expanded unemployment insurance, canceling all unpayable debt, affordable and public housing, and free education. Now, the fourth one, this is the one that came out most recently, Representative Mo Brooks. His bill is to force communist China to pay for America's trillions in losses, stimulus from injuries related to including loss of earnings, medical expenses, replacement services loss, and loss due to death. And there's more where that came from. As long as there's hope out there, we'll definitely keep an eye on all the stimulus programs that could mean more money, more cash in our pockets. Sound pretty good? Then subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. You definitely don't want to miss out on the latest and most accurate updates on the web. Not to mention any state level stimulus, even local level stimuluses or stimuli. How do you say stimulus in plural? Anyway, local level, state level, city level, we are keeping an eye on all forms of stimulus that will be coming out. One more item on our stimulus watch list is that pesky debt ceiling issue that the Democrats and Republicans are bickering back and forth about right now in Congress. In a letter to lawmakers on Friday, Hoyer said the House will vote on the debt limit and on a continuing resolution to fund the government. Democrats want it to be bipartisan. Republicans say no way. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, even when President Trump was in office, Democrats worked 3 times with Republicans to suspend the debt ceiling because it was the right thing to do. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell replied, Democrats keep boasting about how wild and revolutionary their partisan vision is. So our friends across the aisle should not expect traditional bipartisan borrowing to finance their non-traditional, reckless taxing and spending spree. That's not how this works. 46 Republican senators said in a letter that they would would not vote to increase the debt ceiling, whether that increase comes through a standalone bill, a continuing resolution, or any other vehicle. Now here's White House Director of the National Economic Council, Brian Deese, talking about it.
Hey, Brian, it's Sam Stein with Politico. I want to switch gears a little bit, but it's something that could be tucked into this bill, which is the debt ceiling. Mitch McConnell has said repeatedly he's not going to provide a single Republican vote for the debt ceiling. I know you guys think it's hypocritical. It is. But the reality is you're going to need all 50 Democratic senators to raise the debt ceiling. Do you have a preferred avenue to do this? Is it going to be in the government funding bill? And do you think you are going to need to, think outside the box potentially? Because that vehicle requires 60 votes.
So we're confident that this is going to get done. It's absolutely unspeakable and unthinkable that we would allow the federal government to default on the obligations that it has already made. I'd say two things. The first is it's important we go back in very recent history. This month, 4 years ago, September 2017, you had a president controlling both parties of Congress, and they came together, passed a bipartisan short-term funding bill that included disaster relief and a short-term extension of the debt limit. Democrats, right at that moment, were fighting the signature legislation of that president. That was when Donald Trump was pushing his tax cut bill through reconciliation. And yet Democrats came together because it's their responsibility to put votes on the debt ceiling. I've seen this done in a bipartisan way consistently. And the best way to do this is without a lot of drama, without a lot of self-inflicted harm to the economy and to our country. And that's what we're going to do. There's a lot of posturing on this issue, but we're confident at the end of the day we'll get this done.
Democrats also have the option of the good old reconciliation route, but they're not having any of it. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told reporters, "We won't be putting it in reconciliation." Now, I wonder why they won't put that in reconciliation. If they really want it and they can use it, why are they holding out on that one? Now, just to catch everyone up, the federal debt limit is a legal cap on how much debt the U.S. can take on to be able to pay for obligations that are already approved by the president and Congress for several years. Raising the debt ceiling does not erase the debt that we already have. It also doesn't even create any new debt like what many people want you to believe. Basically, what it does do is it gives the federal government a little bit more room to be able to pay off its bills. It's kind of like, let's just say you had a $5,000 credit limit. And let's just say you had $4,800 worth of charges on the card. Well, let's say you called your credit card company and you asked for a credit limit increase. Now you have $10,000 in credit line. So your available credit is now $10,000. You still owe $4,800. So the amount of credit that you can run up now is increased even though your debt didn't go away. This is essentially what the government's trying to do. And a lot of scary stuff could happen to us if the debt ceiling isn't raised and the government ends up defaulting. I'm talking really bad things. Now, the worst case scenario here is that many Americans may not get their Social Security payments and veterans benefits while federal workers may not get paid either. There could also be an increase in people's borrowing costs like credit cards, car loans, mortgage rates, you name it. Now, we definitely don't want any of that. But Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told Congress leaders that all their cash and extraordinary measures would be exhausted in October, just a couple weeks from now. She said in her letter, a delay that calls into question the federal government's ability to meet all of its obligations would likely cause irreparable damage to the U.S. economy and global financial markets. At a time when the American families, communities, and businesses are still suffering from the effects of the ongoing global, it would be particularly irresponsible to put the full faith and credit of the United States at risk. My advice, guys, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Now, to help you guys with that, we have our newsletter on the 20 proof ways to generate extra income today. Really, I just wanted to do my part and kind of help everyone out while waiting on our lawmakers to do something for us. Now, with this channel exclusive newsletter, we can learn all about the new normal and, most importantly, how you can reinvent yourselves financially in this stage of the game. Trust me, this is going to be a big help with all the changing curfews, the lockdowns, self-isolations, the restrictions, stay-at-home orders, mask mandates. All that stuff's happening right now. So prepare yourselves. Remember, guys, millions of people were laid off, entire households collapsed, and children have been left to starve in today's economy. We do not want that happening for our YouTube fam. So make sure to get your copy today. Links right down there in the pinned comment down below, as well as in the description of this video. Now, President Biden has been busy as well with his own heavy lifting. First, he went after big corporations and wealthy Americans while promoting his economic agenda, and the congressional Democrats are working to get across the finish line.
Working people, we're struggling to make it long. Big corporations and the very wealthy, we're doing very well. That's why I've said, starting back in my campaign for president, that it's not enough to just build back. We have to build back better than before. And that's how it all begins. Big corporations and the super wealthy have to start paying their fair share of taxes. It's long overdue. I'm not out to punish anyone. I'm a capitalist. If you can make $1 million or $1 billion, that's great. God bless you. All I'm asking is you pay your fair share. Pay your fair share, just like middle-class folks do. But that isn't happening now. Today in this country right now, the top 1%, for example, evade an estimated $160 billion in taxes that they owe each year. Not new taxes, taxes that they owe. And the way it works is this. If you're a typical American, like I suspect most of the press people sitting, because you get a W-2 form. It comes in the mail every year. The IRS gets that information as well. Your taxes get deducted from your paycheck. Information as well. Your taxes get deducted from your paycheck. 99% of working people pay the taxes they owe. But that's not how it works for people with tens of millions of dollars. They play by a different set of rules, and they're often not employees themselves. So the IRS can't see what they make and can't tell if they're cheating. That's how many of the top 1% get away with paying virtually nothing.
I just want to repeat what he said here. This is our moment to deal working people back into the economy. This is our moment to prove to the American people that the government works for them and not just big corporations and those at the very top. And if you're a fan of our channel, you would definitely know what we're talking about here. And don't forget about those corporations. Here's a recap of what they said that they were going to do with the tax cuts that they got in 2017 versus what they actually did. Spoiler alert, it wasn't raising wages.
Taxing business, including corporations, discourages economic activity.
Congress is debating an increase in the corporate tax rate.
Rich people and corporations, is it true they don't pay their fair share?
This has brought out all the tired old mantras about how corporate tax hikes are bad for workers and the economy.
This will lead to a slowing down of the economy.
This is going to be discouraging economic activity nationwide.
These people hope that Americans have forgotten what corporations did with their tax windfalls after the Republican tax law in 2017. That law slashed the corporate tax rate from 35 to 21%, a huge giveaway that's cost us hundreds of billions of dollars in lost revenue. When corporate leaders were lobbying for those tax cuts, they promised to use the savings for big worker bonuses and new hiring. AT&T CEO Randall Stephenson, for example, promised to create thousands of new, high-paying U.S. jobs.
Lower taxes drives more investment, drives more hiring, drives greater wages.
So what really happened after the tax cuts? AT&T got a $42 billion tax windfall, paid their CEO $30 million, and then laid off tens of thousands of workers. And AT&T wasn't alone. Average CEO pay jumped 25% between 2016 and 2019, while overall U.S. employment grew more slowly than during Obama's last term. Companies also blew more than $1 trillion on stock buybacks that further enriched CEOs and wealthy shareholders.
Now they're concerned about people getting, too rich or something. I don't get this. I don't get any of this.
Tax scammers shouldn't even try to fool us twice. A fair tax agenda that raises revenue from the wealthy and big corporations would be good for workers and the economy.
All of their life savings is going to be damaged by Biden's tax increases on the corporate income tax.
Instead of lining the pockets of CEOs, let's invest in clean energy jobs and health and education programs that will make us all stronger.
Like Biden said, we're not asking for an arm and a leg here, just their fair share of taxes. Now remember, the more tax revenue that they get, the more wiggle room that we have for the stimulus, possibly including that fourth stimulus check. And that's what we're talking about here. Together with us is Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Now she wrote a letter to the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal saying that Democrats should increase the amount of information that the third parties report to the IRS as a part of the tax proposals in the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation package. Now, according to her, she said, a recording regime that is broad-based will better assist the IRS in targeting enforcement priorities on the high end who accrue income in opaque ways. Bottom line, she wants to give the IRS some major teeth to run after those millionaires and billionaires who get away with a lot. Amazon definitely benefited from some of those convenient tax rules. In 2018, thanks to tax credits and deductions, Amazon actually received a federal tax refund of $129 million. That was a year after Amazon received a $137 million refund from the federal government for 2017. President Biden also did some heavy lifting with Manchin, although we're not seeing much of that yet. White House Director of the National Economic Council, Brian Deese, is still positive about it, though.
The White House is pushing forward now on the president's signature spending plan, but the road to passing the reconciliation bill in the Senate just got more rough. Axios reporting President Biden's one-on-one meeting with moderate Democrat Senator Joe Manchin this week did not result in a deal on the spending bill. Instead, the West Virginia senator doubled down on his refusal to back the $3.5 trillion price tag. Joining us now, White House Director of the National Economic Council, Brian Deese. Brian, good morning. It's good to see you. So what does this mean for the future of this massive spending package? Obviously, you need Joe Manchin, you need Kyrsten Sinema. You need all of them because of the 50-50 split in the Senate. But if Joe Manchin says, I'm not moving on this, where does that leave you?
Well, look, I appreciate the role that headline writers have in trying to write those types of headlines. But the truth is we're making progress. We continue to make progress. Senator
What does that
Manchin,
mean? He said he's not going to support the bill. If you don't have him, you don't have a bill.
Well, I'm not going to get into private negotiations. We never do. Private discussions the president is having. But I can tell you that we are making progress on this. We have a lot of issues to work through, but we're working through them. And everybody is focused on the idea that we have to get something done here. We have to get something done here for the country. So we're going to keep that process going. You know, if we tallied up all of the times in which this Build Back Better agenda that President Biden has put forward was declared dead in the public and in the press, then we would have a long, long list. We continue to keep our head down, keep moving, and we are making progress here.
So what does that look like, Brian, then? If it's maybe it won't be $3.5 trillion, maybe it's $1 trillion or $2 trillion. Are you open to giving a little bit to Joe Manchin, and maybe this won't end up being a $3.5 trillion package?
Well, we're going to keep those negotiations among the members of Congress. But what I would say is I think you heard from the president pretty clearly yesterday. The president is and has been open to compromise throughout this process. You saw that in the context of the infrastructure bill that he negotiated. What he's not willing to compromise on is the urgency of moving to address deep structural challenges we have in our economy that have put working class families at a structural disadvantage. And so he's focused on how we can make real progress there. And look, you know, there are different moving parts, and this is the legislative process. The House committees marked up a set of bills over the course of the last couple of weeks. Now the House comes together, thinks about how to stitch that together, and then that'll go to the Senate. That's the process, and we're right in the middle of it right now.
Hey, Brian,
Quick flashback here to early March. With Biden's $1.9 trillion relief package in danger of failing, he called Manchin and told him, if you don't come along, you're really freaking me. Yeah, that's putting it nicely. And we all know how that turned out. Manchin eventually voted for the bill after holding out for some last-minute changes. And here's where we are now.
It's Kathy Kay here. Can I push you a little bit more on Senator Manchin? I mean, he clearly came out of that meeting and he has said that he's not going to support $3.5 trillion. Can you give us more detail on where you are? You say you're making progress, but where is the progress? Because without him, you don't have the deal, you don't have the bill. What are you prepared to give him at least some parameters of the discussion that's taking place to get to somewhere where you can have an agreement with?
Well, let me make a couple of points. The first is on your question about progress. We saw extraordinary progress in the House over just the last couple of days. The House Ways and Means Committee reported out a package of tax reforms and tax increases that would make good on the president's promise, not only to restore some tax fairness in this country, but also generate revenue to invest in important programs. It wasn't everything that the president proposed. There are members with large ideological differences across that committee, and they're able to come together and work on a package there. And, you know, the question about where this goes forward, a lot of the focus needs to shift and is shifting in these conversations away from this top line. The idea of $3.5 trillion in spending is in and of itself wrong. There's never been a bill that has been $3.5 trillion in spending. This is about tax cuts. This is about investments in the country. And most importantly, everything we're talking about is going to be fully paid for. You know, traditionally, when we talk about pieces of legislation, you talk about the net cost of those pieces of legislation. That certainly was true with respect to the Trump tax cut. Even as you all were talking about the Trump tax cut, you were talking talking about $1.5–2 trillion. You didn't talk about the fact that it had $6 trillion in gross tax cuts. What we should be focused here on is what is this bill going to accomplish for the economy and what's the net cost going to be? And we're confident at the end of the day, the net cost is going to be zero.
Is Biden going to just give in to Manchin? Or is this really just a part of the Manchin drama? Let me hear you guys down in the comments below. More stimulus news, updates, and developments in our coming videos. Did you catch all the updates in this one? Our fourth stimulus check update and daily news update, we cover the White House talks about the $3.5 trillion stimulus package and the scary debt ceiling cliff that we're about to fall off next month potentially. Expanded unemployment coming in hot in the $3.5 trillion stimulus package. And lastly, President Biden doing some heavy lifting of his own for the sake of the $3.5 trillion stimulus package. Now, if you missed a part or two, you're welcome to watch it all over again. Better yet, just head on over to the channel playlist. You can get access to all of your favorite stimulus check topics there. Fourth stimulus check, student loan forgiveness, Social Security, it's all there, guys. So again, just want to thank you guys so much for dropping in. I appreciate the valuable like that you hit on this video. I cannot thank you guys enough for supporting the channel. Take care and be safe. 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 Take care and be safe.